preparation for Christmas. I kind of do this, despite the poets, kind of for myself. As I prepare to get ready for Christmas, this helps me. This helps me to shut out everything that is going on in the outside world. And just for this time together, to be in the moment, you hear that a lot, be in the moment with the spoken word and with music. So that is my wish for you, to be in the moment of each word, of each note as we prepare for Christmas. I am Andrew Galuska, the Director of Music here at the Community Church of Vero Beach, and it's my pleasure to welcome Sean Sexton, who will introduce our first poet of this, I believe, is our 6th season. Yeah, 6th season of doing our poetry and organ series. Sean?
And the man still hasn't run out of material.
It's close.
How is that possible?
It's close.
Maybe today, right? Maybe
Today could be the day.
today. I was afraid of that. Look at you all, such radical people to come and do a poetry thing in the middle of the day. Think of all the things you really could be doing. It's such a treat to have you here. Thank you for being here. I posted one of Gordon's poems today, and I thought maybe I should look up what Advent is all about. And so what exactly is Advent? And Advent means coming. And during this season, Christians prepare for Jesus' coming. The 4 Sundays preceding Christmas, leading to the celebration of the birth of Jesus, the candles on the Advent wreath signify hope, love, joy, and peace. And so in my post, I threw out a welcome to people of all faiths, or people of all diversity and stripe, to come here and connect with those things, however it connects to them. And that's really why we're here. I always think, oh boy, more poetry, and I get to spend time with somebody I really admire and get to have in my midst. And so let me tell you about who that person is. Gordon has written 2 chapbooks and then a complete collection, Scaring the Bears, that came out about a year ago or 2? A year in April. We both have brought books out right into the COVID, swarm, and it's happened to a lot of people. It was sort of a coincidental thing. I have about 20 friends who have books that came out right in the middle of that, and it just it was hard on everything. And Gordon actually brought books to. In case you were interested further than just hearing and you wanted to do some reading, he got them at my house. I'm not sure what to do about that. Maybe we can take orders or anyway. He doesn't have a commercial bone in his body, He's an educator at Mercer University in Georgia in Macon. He lives there with his wife and 3 children. Are they all home? One of them's getting ready for college right now. I do know that. And he was a director of the Georgia Poetry Circuit from 96 to 07. And he directed the creative writing program until 17, and I'm not sure you're in maybe another kind of status there just as a professor of English, or I see. But anyway, let me not hold up his wonderful poetry another moment, I give you Gordon Johnston.
Thank you, Sean. Nothing like having a new friend. And Sean is a new friend that I've made in the past year, although I feel I've known him a lot longer than that. But I am glad you have him as a brother in this church. And I want to first thank him for having me. I want to thank his wife, Sharon. They hosted me last night. I've had a great time. This is the first morning poetry reading I have ever given. But I feel ready for it because I was hosted so well. I want to thank Andrew as well. He is really in the hot seat. I'm going to read, and then he's going to play. I feel all the pressure's off me compared to what's going on over there with Andrew. When I think of Advent, I think of all those terms that Sean just mentioned. I think of gifts. We don't often think this, but I'm the father of 3 kids. They're all older kids. 2 of them are, one's all the way through college. One's about to finish college. The third is a senior in high school. But being a parent, the transformation involved in having a kid is incredible. It's incredible for a mother. It's incredible for a father, too. And when I think of the Advent story, we have all these pretty little creches around with the ivory Jesus and the ivory Mary and Joseph and that sort of thing. But if you think about the original birth story, it's kind of a horror story. Mary having her first child that far from anybody she knows. The only person there to help her is a Jewish man. So when I think of Advent, I think of the words sore afraid. Remember when the shepherd's out in the field and the angel comes to deliver the news and the light's so bright and they're sore afraid. And I think of Mary pondering things in her heart. I think of her bravery. And I think of, to the old Jews, the heart was not the center of emotion. When you pondered things in your heart, you reasoned about justice. Pondering in the heart was not something women were expected to do, or even it wasn't even thought commonly that they could do that back then. So I mention this as sort of background for some of the poems. And these first poems, most of them are sort of poems of prayer and contemplation. The first one is called The Elements. A couple of things to have in mind. My daughter is 23 now. She's 3 in the poem. And it's about one of those odd conversations you have as a parent with a kid when they're young and they're asking questions. And supposedly you're the smart one, but they ask these questions that are really difficult to answer at times. The Elements. Emma, 3, sees a big balloon over a used car lot. What makes it go up there, Daddy? I answer, helium, a gas. She nods. We put gas in the car. Once again, I can't say what I know. Can't tell her there's an absence with a name, a nothing that gives rise to balloons. I try. Like air, like what a fan makes, like when you breathe. Does she know she breathes? It's hard to see right now, I say, feeling like my own father. Did he believe his own self? Once I heard a preacher in hog hammock say the Trinity was simple. You got your solid in God, who ain't changing. Your liquid in Jesus, filling that human shape to bring you baptism. You got the Holy Ghost, unseen and brooding over you this minute. All different forms of the same thing. I wish one of them would come and explain helium to me and Emma both. But you know how it is. They all 3 sort of stay way up there. I plan future answers to her elemental questions. Diamonds are water with backbone. Fire is whole summers of sunlight unwinding from wood. Are all fathers this flaky? What air fills our heads? After M came, I found myself pouring coffee slow to fit more into the mug. Lord, give me cup enough to catch this pour. May we realize that some vacancies rise. Oh, yes, please. Thank you, Andrew. This next poem is called The Things of Earth, and it's about church services that I remember as a child. I was taken to church every time the doors were open growing up. And I didn't always want to be there. Maybe you can relate to this if you remember your own childhood. But there was one particular kind of service I really loved, where we got to sit down the whole time and we just sang and sang. And it's about that kind of service. The Things of Earth. Some Sunday nights, we sang the whole service, people raising their hands for the oldest hymns. It was my kind of church, just the piano, a dozen grown-ups, and half as many kids, the preacher letting us sit through every song. We casted down our golden crowns around the glassy sea. If you tried, you could hear any one voice except Mr. Peavy, who sang the words more inside his mouth than out. These nights, I didn't pester my mother for gum or twist Wrigley's wrappers into little silver cups. I only listened to the weird words saved up for Sunday. Burden, thou, diadem, thee. We sang, the things of earth will grow strangely dim. And I saw twilight out the open windows on the long grass all the way to the road. Preacher quiet, fingertips tinted, head bowed, asked some deacon, close us in prayer, though Miss Rose's and Brother Bill Elliott's hands still reached for certain songs. Rare nights when you could ask and then receive just exactly what you wanted. It seemed to me all should stay until every hand was answered. You should know it's not yours to close, not the night or God's ears or hands or the mouths of people asking for something that in the singing everybody else finds they wanted too. I didn't hear prayer so much as close us in. I wanted to stay out, singing with Miss Rose, I come to the garden alone, all she ever asked for, and what we should have sung with her, alone in unison, until she got ready herself to go out in the dark. Just remarkable, Andrew. You guys should see his face. Everybody should get a chance to sit up here in the, in the chair. I know it's got to be great to watch as the rest of him doing what he's doing, but you should see his face. All right. Let's see. I will read next a poem called Household God. When I was a kid, I thought there was one way to pray. There were the scripted prayer, not scripted, but the Lord's Prayer, the disciples' prayer you say out of the Bible, the God is great, God is good, that we would say over meals. All my young life, I thought of prayer in limited terms. And as I've aged, I've learned that there's almost no way not to pray if you're in need and you're honest about it and you believe there's a life larger than your own out there. This is, and I had some times as a parent when I didn't know whether I was making the right choices. I thought being a father would be the same for all three kids. You have to figure out how to father each of your children. At least in my case, that's how it was. And I was always, even with the third one, I was always a little uneasy about making wrong choices. Didn't even know how to pray about parenting. So I just made up the bed, slowly, my kid's bed. And that became something like a prayer, So this is a new poem. I wrote it about 3 weeks ago. And it's about those alternative ways to pray. Household God. There's an ear there as you make the bed that will hear what you can't say, an eye that reads the sign language of your hand tucking the quilt, plumping from the pillow the shape of a loved sleeper's head. When you pinch a bloom off an impatiens in the hope of another blossom, some small angel hearkens to the gratitude, however brief. The deity watches the washing of the dog, savors the cold, clean incense of sudsy fur, then the psalm of him shaking dry and rolling in grass, joyous to ruin your work. The Almighty asks to lie beside you under the warm Ford, watching the black pour of 40-weight oil that has anointed your wife's comings and goings and delivered your daughter to school. The God of plunging the clog, of washing windows and priming the sump and packing the lunch, the I am of sorting spice jars and ironing. The ping of each pea shelled into this pan is a rosary bead, a ritual with no words, a grace of work, a prayer sound. You think you are the giver, the owner. Then you hear the only life there is listening to you listen. Both you and God feel found. There is only holy ground. I've spent a wonderful day with Sean yesterday and today. I heard lots of stories. I know his family history almost after spending some time with him. And so I wanted to read this poem, partly to honor all that he shared with me about his family history. One thing about Advent, it has always struck me that the awful idea of wanting everybody to be counted. The decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, and to tax everybody, you got to count them all up, right? So you don't miss anybody. And Mary and Joseph being lost in that anonymous number, that bureaucratic, Caesarly Roman number. I come from people who don't really count in that tally all that much. And so the title of this poem is Photograph, 1941. So you kind of have to have in your head an old fading sepia photograph of my father when he was just a tot. My grandfather squatting behind him, and behind them the small in the city farm in Rock Hill, South Carolina, where my dad was raised. So you guys have that image in your head? All right. Photograph, 1941. My father's father, younger than I am, squats in his black suit, his arm around my 5-year-old father, whose own arm drapes over his dad's shoulder. Behind them, the apple tree that persisted until I came. Behind it, the board fence of their big yard that was the very small Johnston farm, where corn, tomatoes, potatoes, greens, turnips, pecans, pears, and a milk cow prospered. The black and white photo seems too bright. The decades have blurred their smiles and lightened edges in the print. The intensity of the morning sun is not what makes the image sing. The boy and man cast a dark shadow leftward out of the frame. In the background, the apple leaves shine against the deep shade around the trunk. In the foreground, my grandfather's hand hangs down his lanky length, has been caught just above its silhouette on the bare ground, a dirt I know. The picture makes me feel found. My father's strong fingers, one set resting on his only boy's thigh, the other open in the gesture of harvest, thumb slightly out, opposable, as if picking a tomato or pole bean or pear, are in action, untouched by arthritis. My father's hands are for toys. His face is my son's. His ears. The picture is a mirror I see into across 72 years. A caught moment of the motion that made me, that made Micah and Graham in the image of us three. I rest in the shade of those 2 acres, the father who fed his family from them, the father they grew. My own growth gathered itself there. Day by day, secondhand sun is taking back its instant of light on apple leaves and these fathers, slowly, without pain. It can't take back the fruit, the grain, or the grip of the roots. It can't take back our name. just beautiful. Wow. So when I think about Advent, I also think about light. So this poem's titled "Some Suns." Suns, S-U-N-S, like the sun in the sky. The sun pours that light continuously, and it's unbroken. But I can't help it. I think of the sun. I break it up. I think in terms of days and nights. We can't really help that living on earth as we do, subject as we are. So, some suns. There's really only one, I know. The long, lone, slow-mo exploding that makes the solar system go. Still, frames of it seem so singular. The day my teenage dungarees dried on the line in 99 degrees, the straight legs of the Levi's baked so stiff they ironed smooth my pruny post-swim skin. I felt like a snake warmed from the outside in. Also, the afternoon sun gemmed every drop of rain in a mountain shower, making the air over the creek a stipple of descending glitter and paying back the chill of my sopped shirt and socks. A year later, my toddler son, strapped for 3 hours in his car seat, crowed at the same sort of light as we vanned through a barrage of soybean sprinkler spray. Clear water glissed the car. The family floated on his ripple of giggles. On Orist Head, in the late 80s, a day as gray, silent, and lonesome as lead, leaked a single starved shaft of sunset onto a hare bedded in bracken, lighting the pulse in its ears. I still listen to him listen. Call me a cheery nitwit to cherry pick and particle eyes Saul's steady stream, which also halos murders and melts the ice from under Arctic bears. But I can't stay salty, recalling the dream my wife woke me to in 95. Our power out, our ceiling lit by our windows of snow. Like that white, I can't not reflect that one morning's sun. I have to hand along that plain, free, one and only light. Andrew. My job seems so easy up here next to the organist. I think I'm going to read a poem a little different from the others. When I was a kid, I had a good friend, and I was over at his house before Christmas, and their manger scene, every time I went to his house, I'd check out their manger scene, because every time I went, there were more animals. You know the animals for the manger scene, the camels, the donkey, usually some sheep there, especially a little lamb, but there were tigers, there were llamas, and his little sister loved animals, and she couldn't stand for any animal to be left out of Christmas. So she would sneak her little plastic animals into the manger scene. Her mother would remove them, and then she'd sneak them back in there. I've never forgotten that story, that image, seeing those. And that doesn't have that much to do with the poem, except that now every Christmas I think about the blessing of the beasts. About the animal element in Christmas. Christ born in a stable. Yeah. That's kind of a cliche. We've gotten used to thinking about that. But birth in a stable, human birth in a stable. In calving season too, right, Sean? So this is about the one animal I never saw in that manger scene collection, turtles. And it's called Herd of Turtles. All right, so it's a play on, we moving slow as a herd of turtles, but it's spelled herd as in I've heard this about turtles, okay? Turtles. They burrow into the bottom come winter, gilling oxygen from the silty flow. Their anal outlet becomes an ingo. Each becomes a Kevlar holster for a heart that slows from 25 rounds a minute, full auto, to 1. So emo. Chilled, their small pumps keep a crawl of blood mapping their veins, glacially slow. Even at 0, sunk stones in the river's frozen hell, they still grow. Spring. Once the pine's saffron pollen has sifted all, then sunk in a rinse of rain or dew, they undie. Weakly they dislodge and rise. To summit a rotting stump takes a tremulous, agonized hour. But once there, pot on worn, sun-stoked stove, every slider's blood gradually comes to simmer inside the pieced-together crock of itself. That inner summer ripples through shell, burns along the backbone and nerves like a fuse. Each clay cooter is fired in the kiln of the noon. What must that be like? Light quickening your eye, flaring like nitrous oxide in the face of threat, to launch and speed your dive, to be sealed for life inside your home. They feel in their bones the one light feeding them. No wonder they wart river rocks, mud pie choirs, mutely singing of green gold underwater fires. That was marvelous. It's hard to maintain my focus up here. I get so involved listening to the music, and then I forget the next poem. It's just wonderful. All right, we're in church, so we need a wedding poem, right? And Christ was the bridegroom. Come to his bride, the church. So this is a poem that I wrote. I teach and have for 26 years at Mercer. And occasionally students ask me to read poems at weddings. And a couple of students have asked me even to officiate weddings, which that's usually my wife's job, who's a Methodist minister. But this is a poem I sort of wrote for those kinds of occasions. So you sort of have to think of it. Imagine a bride and groom down here. Imagine the setting of a wedding, okay? And that'll prime you for the poem. For the wedding. This is another verse of the song your mother started singing, low and to herself, when she was all her own, under her breath, so low it took your father to catch it. At first, he didn't know he heard it, though he was humming along before he knew the tune. Or maybe he knew right off, as my own father did. He saw a girl in his landlord's wedding pictures and hitchhiked from Clemson to Charlotte with a record under his arm to meet her, bring her some music. She had her own music. One date, and he hitched home. While he walked the shoulder, the song got stronger, softer. Soon he bought another record and thumbed back. Let me thank now the strangers who picked him up, upon whose trusting whim I am contingent. Let me thank my daddy's thumb, my mother's face for its flash-caught, strangely certain smile. Let us all thank the song that has sung us here, that we couldn't sing for ourselves. Now, a new song starts. Listen, hum, be ready to sing your part. And I will close with this one. And Andrew, you can do what you want, but I'll give you a pass on this one if you want, since we're close to time. This poem's called Oil, and it's a reference not to the oil you burn in the car, but to the oil of anointing. The oil, placed on the priest's head. The oil. Think of healing oil. Think of oil as a balm. And it's about oil, but it's about that kind of oil. But it's about art and its ability to change us and redeem us. It's a great gift to be able to get up in the morning and write a poem as the sun is coming up. To be, sort of given words. So I'm grateful for that. And just before I read this, thanks again for having me. Thank you, Andrew, for doing such a fabulous job in responding to these poems. Thank you, Sean, being such a great host and a new brother. Oil. On your head this morning, it's always morning where you've come to now. The bright oil of birdsong says, grateful, grateful, says, come be little in these high temples, the trees. Come fill your hollow bones with dawn and visions. In this beginning, there is a call so real it wets your hair. Your white shirt soaks and clings to you. You are born. What has made finch and snake and wren, what has wrought light and the moon and every rapid on every river, what has made words and given them to us as dense and old and admirable as rocks, what spun the zero void into somethingness, tea olive and tanager, honey possum and larch, the turtle, its own home, burning tiger and brook trout and every baby, mildew, sumac, salt, snow and dirt, the I am that all is has said, you sing too. you. Thank you.
Well, we are off to a good start. Thank you so much, Gordon, for being with us today. Thank you, Sean, for bringing Gordon to us. We have 2 more to go. We hope that you will join us live and also virtually. Happy Advent.